Hi again, friends. It's Elena. I hope you are having the best time at these virtual sessions. I'm really excited to be here with you for our second talus tutorial. I hope you're working hard. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're taking time to relax and be kind to yourself, and I hope you're doing your warm-ups. So for today's session, I thought we would focus on the subject of intonation. Now, that might seem really boring. Who wants to think about intonation? But actually, if we can turn it into a really fun, almost game, it's going to make the process so much more enjoyable. Because we play analog instruments, string instruments, the violin, we don't have some button we can just push and a sound comes out like the piano. Not that those are buttons, but you know what I mean. We have to work out where on the string to put our fingers, and not only that, the relationship between the left hand and the bow. So intonation and sound actually really go hand in hand with string instruments. I talked about this a lot on my live tutorial, my live sectional. If you missed that, don't worry. I'm going to go over a lot of what I said here. If you were with me for that, I think all of this really bears repeating because, as I said, it's a lifelong journey, our relationship with intonation. So I thought we would use to practice and to explore these principles today from letter C in the talus until the end of the page. So basically that's all the moving notes, the 16th notes, as I say, or semiquavers. So what does intonation mean for string players? You can really tell when someone is playing beautifully in tune on any instrument because not only is it the right note, but something happens to the instrument. The strings vibrate and they help the notes that you're playing. The wood vibrates well. You can feel it in your hands. You can feel it in the room when you really hit the bullseye of each pitch. There's sort of like a halo or a glow around the note, and that's what I want to work on striving for today. So real quick about intonation just in general. When we play an open string, obviously you can see the string vibrating back and forth. It's especially obvious on the lower strings. When you play a note on the instrument in any octave that has a corresponding open string, like say a D, you can see the D string vibrate if the note is really in tune. So watch this. See how my D on the G string is causing my D string to vibrate? Same happens a little less obviously, but in another octave. I can see a subtle vibration of my D string. Now what happens when I play it slightly out of tune? It still vibrates, but it's a lot less clear. So your instrument will literally tell you visually if you've got the bullseye of the note. And of course this works for any other note that has a corresponding open string. So an A, an E. It's a bit harder to see with the thinner strings, but if you look carefully, you can still see it. G. So now, obviously, not all of the notes on the instrument have open strings. There's no F sharp string, there's no B flat string. But the idea is you practice in such a way that you begin to hear every note with the same level of purity as you can hear the ones that do have open strings. All right, so let's apply it to the talus. I'm going to start from letter C and go really slowly. I'm going to take away the slurs. I'm going to take away the dynamics. I'm just going to practice as many bows as I need per note to find that bullseye, that halo around the sound, to look out for the strings vibrating wherever I possibly can, to notice what this does to my body, because actually practicing like this can be really relaxing. So let's see what happens. Sometimes I like to take the bow off the string to listen to the sort of after effect of the note. If it's really in tune, there's almost a little shimmer that happens even after the sound has stopped, or my bow has stopped. Now moving on. Oh yeah, that's a nice vibration from the D string. I like to check with open strings wherever possible and play as many double stops. Not only does that tell you whether the intervals are in tune with each other, but it also starts preparing your left hand for setting down multiple notes at once, which can be really helpful, especially if you have a lot of string crossings in the music. I'm going to play the top line now. Now there's no B flat string, but I'm listening just as carefully. And while I'm practicing, if I set my finger down and it's not quite in tune, not quite the level of purity that I'm looking for, I won't just smush the finger around until I find the center. I mean, you can do that, but then you also want to go back to the previous note so that you can really find the muscle movement the first time. And if you're practicing in this really slow, relaxed way, you'll be listening, your ears will be open, so that you can start to hear whether you have patterns. So I put that G on the E string down sharp 3 times in a row. So the next time I'm going to bear that in mind, not purposely aim a lot flatter, but just be aware that that is my tendency. Yay! To do this, I'll shift really slowly, really calmly, just figuring out where the finger goes. If possible, for intervals like a fifth, if you can put down in this case, the 3, so that it covers both strings, great. If you have to make little adjustments, just be aware of that. I've never been so good at fifths, so for me it takes a little bit of extra care, extra adjustment. And so on. So practicing intonation like this, taking away the bowings, taking away the vibrato, taking away the stress, makes it quite meditative, I think. You get into this zone where you only want to hear notes that have that ring, that halo, that shine and shimmer to it. So it actually becomes this quest for incredible beauty on something as simple and perhaps in another life boring as intonation. So I don't think practicing intonation is boring at all. It relaxes my body, it relaxes my heart rate, and it's a really nice way to ease into playing every day. It kind of sets the whole thing up. And what you're really doing more than drilling things, thinking about muscle memory, you're cleaning out your ears, you're sharpening up your brain so that the brain retakes ownership of the whole system. So rather than relying on your fingers to figure it out, your fingers don't have brains in them. Here's the brain. Your brain and your ears are in charge, and they're the ones calling the shots. So think about practicing like this, slowing it down, really getting into this kind of meditative zone and listening for that ring around every note. So that would probably be a big part of my practice session on this section of the talus. Then just looking at the music, what are some of the other challenges we have? Shifting, for me, would be something I would want to look out for. The bowing, slurring, string crossings. So let's break those things down a little bit. Let's start with shifting, because I already touched on it in the intonation part. When I'm practicing, I would really make everything as relaxed as possible. I wouldn't be in a hurry to get from note to note. I wouldn't do any jerky motions. I would make sure my fingers are nice and relaxed and can really glide along the string. They're not squeezing the string down, they're just floating on top. So this is, after letters E, 1, 2, 3, the third measure, the second beat. So I might practice that shift going back and forth so that I can really understand with my hand and with my ear the distance between that G and B flat. And then moving on. I might shift here, you shift wherever is appropriate for you. So shifting in this, really take it slow, take it easy, relax the fingers. Make sure you can see a bit of space between the string and the fingerboard when you're shifting. You never want to smush it down. You want the violin to breathe. So that's shifting. I might do a bit of that. String crossings. Inevitably, we can't play all of these things on one string. We're going to have to go back and forth. So being really aware, again, taking it really slow, mindfully, and really understanding what angle the bow is going to be at on the string for each of the note. So I'll start at the beginning for this passage because there's string crossings all throughout this. Oh, I might do free bowing while I'm still at this really slow tempo. To be totally honest with you, I don't even have bowings marked for this part. I might get in trouble for saying that. If you do have bowings, great, work up to that. I might just be a little bit of a free-for-all right now. Making sure I'm nice and even on both strings. I guess that shifting thing didn't work, huh? There we go. Another thing I like about practicing with free bowing and kind of switching it up every time is it means that you'll be excellent at the string crossings no matter what bowing you're on. So say you get to rehearsal in real life or virtual rehearsal and the conductor says, actually I'd like you to take a different bowing there. You're prepared, you know you can do it both ways and you're not a servant to one specific bowing and you can only do it that way. So string crossings, another thing to keep in mind with string crossing is I find it really helpful to have my elbow at the level in between the two strings. So for example, rather than having to move the whole thing back and forth, I like to have my elbow and really the whole bow arm kind of in between so that I have to do as little movement as possible. See that? Rather than, I'm exaggerating. But this goes back to my whole idea of wanting to be as economical, as efficient as possible. Preparing the arm so that it's in a spot that works for everything you have to do, not just one thing at a time. Okay, so we've covered intonation, shifting, string crossings. Obviously, there's so much to work on in this little section, but especially now that we're doing this in this virtual format, get used to practicing this, both imagining, thinking about what the other sections are doing, and really listening to them. So we've got our play along with Tallis. See if you like just to turn it on and really imagine that you're in the second violin section. You're listening to your colleagues, you're breathing with your colleagues. You're understanding that there will be a certain amount of flexibility from the conductor and from the people around you. And just practice getting in that sort of zone, being flexible, seeing if you can take a little bit of rubato and then catch up so that you're still functioning together as one section. Maybe I'll play a little bit more, and you can, if you'd like, you can pause the video, go back, and play with me. From C. It's also a really good thing to do to just, after you've worked so diligently on something, forget it all, just play it through, have fun, breathe, smile, and then you can reassess now what you might need to work on the next time. Because if we only ever drill stuff over and over and don't step back, get a bigger picture, and see what progress we've made, we won't know how to continue. Okay, to recap my lessons for today. Intonation, find the glow. Shifting, as slow and smooth and light and glidey as possible. Glidey, that's my word for the day. Number 3, string crossings. See if you can prepare your arms so that you're ready for each of the string crossings. And number 4, have fun with it. Don't get so caught up in minutia that you forget what the real point of this is. It's to make music together, it's to watch the conductor, it's to breathe with your colleagues, even if they're on the other side of a screen. We really want to make music. So every now and then, forget what you've been practicing, just play, and you might be really pleasantly surprised at how much progress you've made. All right, everyone, happy practicing. As usual, reach out to me with questions. You can tag your videos Practice with Elena. I hope you have fun with this. I hope the intonation thing gets you in a nice, chilled out, meditative mood, and I will see you again very soon.